Well, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's WEConnect International webinar. My name is Maggie Berry. I'm the Executive Director for WEConnect International here in Europe, and I'm delighted that you've joined us for today's webinar, Virtual is Live. Our presenters today are Dina Green and Chris Howland from OrangeDoor. They're a WEConnect International certified women's business enterprise. They're an integrated marketing, communications, events and creative agency and a business that the WEConnect International team here in Europe have worked with for many years around our annual conference. So if you've been to any of them, you'll have seen some of their work. Dina and Chris are going to be discussing the topic of virtual, digital and online events and how to as engaging as possible. They're also going to be having a look at the future of virtual programming and how it will feed into your face-to-face event planning, which, as we know, has all been pretty much turned on its head in light of COVID-19. So if I can just ask everybody to keep themselves on mute as we're going through, just to keep background noise to minimum. Please do use the chat functionality to ask questions. There will be chance to ask questions throughout the presentation and also again at the end. And I'm sure if you've got more questions, the OrangeDoor team will be very happy for you to contact them afterwards. They're probably going to talk for about 40 to 45 minutes, Dina and Chris, and then the session's being recorded so you can listen back to it again. So that's really it for me. Dina and Chris, it's over to you. Thank you very much for presenting for us today. Dina, the floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Hello, everybody. I'm Dina Green. I'm the Managing Director of OrangeDoor. And firstly, I'd like to say thank you very much, Maggie and WeConnect, for having us. We're super excited to have the opportunity to talk to your members. And as a female-owned and led business, we do love to be a part of the mix. Now, I'm actually going to turn my camera off so that you can see the slides. My Wi-Fi is not great today, and I just wanted to minimize the risk of dropping off, or Chris will never speak to me again if I leave it all to him today. So just going to do that to save my Wi-Fi. Well, the world has changed in so many ways. We knew a lot before, and now we know even more. So from conferences, training days and exhibition halls to award shows and networking breakouts, we have literally been thrown into the deep end with virtual. But one thing I will stress is that virtual events are not new. We have been doing them for maybe 12 to 14 years. It's just that before they were an add-on, and over the past 4 months, they have been pushed to center stage. It was the direction that we were kind of heading in anyway. It's just been accelerated due to the pandemic. And on that note, I just wanted to bring up a question that actually came in from somebody when they registered that I thought would be a good thing to start with. What do you feel are the key ways in which work and business have changed for the better in a faster and deeper way than would have been the case if the pandemic had not happened? And B, the key development needs people and organizations now have if they are to fully embrace the better new normal. Well, I have a lot to say about business as a whole when answering this question, but to keep it on topic, when it comes to virtual events, there are some great key positives. Less travel does mean less environmental impact. Opening up to online can increase the reach and therefore the influence to your audiences. People can be more discerning, choosy as to what they join and see and be a part of. Someone who lives in Amsterdam can now attend an event that usually takes place in Lisbon without having to take a couple of days out of their busy schedule, without having to get on any transport, and they can decide which bits they want to attend that are more relevant to them. And they're more likely to be able to catch up with what they miss later on in the week. When it comes to the key development needs that people, and in my opinion, therefore, their organizations, it's all around adaptability. People need to be open to change, flexibility, being able to unashamedly make mistakes. You can go on courses for most of these things, but really it's in the culture of the organization to allow progress when it is thrust upon us. We had to adapt very quickly to be able to fulfill our clients' needs in a completely new way than what we had already been planning. So I'm super proud of the team that they threw themselves into this and adapted. There were mistakes made along the way, of course, but this just taught us more. So onto the team. I'm very proud to introduce Chris Howland, our Head of Client Services, who has been instrumental in leading the way to the people and our clients for many years, and especially over the last few months where he has grabbed the virtual opportunity and charged forward with it. Over to Chris.
Thank you so much, Dina. I think to start off with, it's important to look at the landscape of virtual and what that really means. As Dina said, and as Maggie alluded to as well, we've been doing live face-to-face events for a very long time. And these virtual pieces have always been part of that, but they've never really been at the fore. And it's out of this necessity that we've had over the past few months that it's been driven to create and curate new experiences as we move forward with this new type of engagement. When we started looking in around the February, March time, when our face-to-face events started to kind of fall away, we realized that there were a huge amount of options out there. And actually, if any of you have actually been in the event space at all, you'll probably recognize some of these event brands. The thing with these is that they've always been there. What we've been able to do is harness them, utilize them, and use them in new ways. And actually, there are so many options out there. What we realized is that there isn't actually one platform that does everything. What we're going to do through this section is try and give you a bit of an overview of what those different types of platforms are, go into those platforms in a little bit, and then try and help you choose work out how to choose those different platforms. So what we've looked at is the different types of platforms that you can get. First is video conferencing, which is what we're on at the moment. It's Zoom, it's WebEx, it's Microsoft Teams. They're very simple, they're very accessible, they're very easy to use, and they make all of our engagement, all of our connections very simple. We then go on to something like our video broadcast and streaming solutions, which is actually where you bring in an agency or someone to actually hybridize what you're doing with your events. So that might be live streaming, it might be bringing in recorded video, and it might be bringing in other kind of content that actually bring all of your video to life. The webinar hosting solutions within here, those tend to bring everything together. You've got your guidebooks, you've got attachments that you can add onto things. And what you can also do is actually add a lot more engagement features into one space. And what you can also do is then absolutely host those afterwards. So you have one place, like with WeConnect, where you can go back to those and you can view those webinars post-event. We then go into more of our kind of event solutions, and this is where we get into some of the more immersive pieces. Digital event solutions, like the one on the left-hand side there, they allow us to actually network within one platform. They allow us to bring our partners, they allow us to bring our vendors to the fore and give them their own space to engage with your attendees, as well as having different ways of being able to present content. What they also allow is that real kind of face-to-face engagement, not just through streaming, but through one-on-one sessions. You then get into your more immersive event solutions, such as these 3D worlds. These actually try and recreate the feeling of a live event. So you're going into a world, into a conference, into a theatre, and actually developing what would be your live face-to-face event. You can click through into exhibit halls, into auditoriums, into lounges, and you also have the support system there to be able to drive people and navigate around your event. Then there are these fully immersive virtual world solutions. Now, these aren't for everyone, but what they do enable is people to be able to actually walk around, similar to The Sims or Minecraft, a virtual world where you can actually explore different areas. These would be great if you were looking at something like a student fair or something for graduates, or even an incentive for some of your sales teams. It's a lot more immersive, it's a lot more gamer friendly. What we're looking at doing now is just going into those into a bit more detail. The video conferencing solutions such as Zoom are great because they enable two different types of conferencing. First, you have your meetings, which is actually what we're in now. And that enables a lot more kind of interaction between attendees. What you can do with a webinar, however, is actually have a lot more control as a host between who the panelists are and who the participants are. So that allows you to be able to actually promote people to be able to show themselves, to be able to ask questions. You can have hosts and panelists only on screen. And you can also have other functions such as those polling, interactive tools such as the chat, and anything else that kind of immerses people a bit more in the experience. One great thing about meetings, however, is that you are able to use that for breakouts. That enables you either before the event or during the event to actually break people out into smaller rooms. We sometimes find that more than 6 people, you lose your voice. And so breaking larger groups up into those smaller rooms as you go through an event makes the engagement a lot stronger. Then looking into a digital event solution. So this is where you're really bringing an event into one place. Now, these aren't trying to be a face-to-face event. They know what they are. They are a digital event. But what they're doing is doing it really, really well. You have different types of engagement through those. So you have your video conferencing, you're able to have round tables, you're even able to have attendee-led sessions on these. So attendees can actually go in, set up their own rooms, co-create the agenda, and really drive that engagement forward. One of the key things that you miss out on when you're not at a face-to-face event is the networking side of things. And a lot of these platforms actually enable networking through different ways. And one of our favorites is through a speed dating piece, where you're actually able to group people into different groups who you want to meet, and they will randomly connect with others for a set amount of time. If you want to be able to then share your details, you could both click on the connect button and your business card will be shared post-event. You're also able to bring partner, sponsor, and vendor booths to the fore with these, which means that you're actually able to bring those people into the event, be able to show them and give some return on investment for what they've paid for that, and actually allow them to connect directly with participants in their own individual space. And one of the biggest things on these areas is around the analytics. You can actually have high level and granular analytics around where people have been within the platform, how much time they've spent on the platform, where they've actually engaged with, and much more through that. Then when you look at an immersive event solution, it really takes you into the event. The registration and lobby can be fully branded. You can put as much detail as you want in there, and you can make sure that actually it aligns with the type of feel of event that you want. The same with those theatre and breakout rooms. You can have them larger or smaller, still with your branding, and still containing a consistent feel throughout. You then have your 3D world immersive booths, this whole hall that you can go into, and then you can actually create 3D booths for people to be able to click through to, download content, engage with the vendors, and take away a lot more from their events. And of course, more networking opportunities, being able to link your LinkedIn, be able to link any of your social assets, and actually being able to have that support from both the event agency and from the event vendor themselves. One of the biggest challenges, however, with this is how do you choose which one to go for? And what we always like to say is you don't start choosing a face-to-face event with the venue. What you do is you think about the people, you think about who's going to be attending that, who is the target audience, and what do you want them to get out of the event? What's your relationship with them, and how much time do they have to spend on this event, and how immersed do you want them to be? Then it's around the experience. What kind of broadcast options do you want? Do you need just live? Do you need recorded? Do you need that hybridized version? And in terms of the networking features that you've got, do you need any face-to-face networking? Is it fine just connecting people through their LinkedIn? Then there's pieces around the customization and very big around security and privacy, especially if you're working with banks or similar. A lot of these platforms actually use external video conferencing platforms such as Zoom, which aren't allowed to be used within the banking sector. So it's very clear that you want to bring that if they are going to be having people from the banking area. You then last go on to platform. So any integrations that you need, do you have a separate site that you need to be able to register people on? The experience and expertise, of course, is absolutely key. There's been a lot jumping on the bandwagon recently, trying to build out these virtual experiences for you. But what can they actually offer and what background do they have? And then timescales. The timescales are absolutely key at the moment. A lot of platform providers are overwhelmed. We are looking at end of the year, early to next year for some of those bigger platforms. So when do you need to deliver your event? And of course, what is the pricing and value of those? Do you have any questions at this point coming through?
Chris, hi, it's Maggie. Yes, we've got one from Rebecca Hill asking, question for Chris. What is your favourite or favourites digital event solutions and why? There was obviously
what are you going to say here,
tons
Chris?
of hands on that.
It's a difficult question because our favourite platforms depend on the experience that we can make for our clients. We don't have a platform that we prefer. What we want to do is actually be able to provide the one that is right for our client. Now, if we were to look at those different types of platforms, so something like the immersive solutions, we want to choose something that is able to be developed by us as an agency, so you're not going through too many middlemen. And we want to be able to create something that has a very kind of simple wayfinding experience for attendees as they move through. But then you go on to something like that digital event solution, and we have found one that is pretty much an all-in-one there called Hopin. And what we would absolutely love to do is talk more people through that, because as an agency, when we were starting this off, we didn't think that there was anything that ticked all of the boxes. What we found is that working with them as an agency, we've been able to actually develop that into a solution that works for 90% of our clients.
Pretty high percentage. I think that's Rebecca, if you get a chance, please do. If there's any that you would recommend, please do put that in the chat box. That would be great. I know within WeConnect we've used something for our International Day called FeedLoop, and I think my colleagues in Canada are going to use that for their conference later in the year. So, and we're still looking for solutions. Wendy's asked about what is your advice when attendees are in different time zones, and she's just said it was a big.
I'm actually going to jump in there just to say that I have a whole slide on that, Wendy. So
we'll come to that. We'll come to that shortly.
In the next bit, I've got a whole slide on it because I know how important it is. So if you wait a couple of minutes, I will answer that question.
Perfect. Thanks. I've got a question around the user experience and all these different platforms. And obviously, you know, at an in-person event, you basically tell somebody to turn up at the right time at this venue. Mm-hmm. Some of the technology I've seen, it's almost like you've got to go in beforehand, you've got to do these things, and actually there's lots of things that they need to learn. Maybe you're going to cover this, but is there any advice around how you help your users, learn the technology and not be put off by it?
It's actually, we do have a bit on that. It's actually a very good question, and it's some feedback that we got from a couple of the events that we've run, that people spent a lot of time trying to find their way into different areas of it. And it's all to do with that kind of prep with people. So through a really robust pre-communications plan and joining instructions, maybe teasing the platform for them. And then when they're in there, using actually all of those tools that you're able to, such as push notifications, such as organizer comments, and then obviously actually using the presenters themselves to talk people around where to go within the platform. Something else that we're looking at doing is actually using account managers. So especially if it's a larger event like a conference, you'd have your account managers there to actually, welcome people to the venue, welcome people to the event, and then take them around and show them where to go. So actually using them to be our, are people who drive the attendees round.
Great. And Wendy's asked a follow-up question, which is very interesting actually, around is there any insight into taking account into maybe the age, maybe gender, but maybe the age of participants, you know, in terms of if there's a better match for people around that?
I wouldn't say it's so much around age. I would say it's probably more to do with the kind of job level and the experience that they feel that they need from that. I think something like those really immersive event solutions aren't going to be right for your C-level because they want to get in there, they want to get the information within their busy schedules. But if you do have someone, for example, that's within a more technical or IT background, then that's something like that would actually be quite exciting for them to go into and explore. So I think it's not to do with age so much as the actual audience, what their role is and what they're expecting to get out of it.
Fantastic. I think we'll go on, we'll move on from there. We're already at 23 minutes past. That's probably good time to move on to the next bit. Thank you very much.
Right, on to me. So I'm going to stop my video again just because of the Wi-Fi, apologies. So planning for success. Now, I don't think that you really need to approach these things too differently to an actual face-to-face event, but there is lots to think about, and some of this might be pretty obvious, but it's always helpful to be reminded. It has actually been a bit of a challenge to set this presentation at a level that can engage and inform a really wide audience, because I know a lot of you may already be doing virtual events brilliantly, and then there are others that have not even been to one. So I hope this is useful to most, but would be happy to go into more detail with anyone afterwards. Just please do get in touch. So next slide, please. Thank you. So live, recorded, face-to-face, any project really, it needs a strategy. What are you trying to achieve? What are your objectives and your KPIs? What do we want the audience to think, feel, and do? What kind of experience do you hope to deliver? Will the event be live, on demand, or both? All of these questions, you know, where do I want the content to be seen? Is it public? Is it private? Will the access be gated or free? And I know there's an enormous amount of chat around making events free at the moment and whether we're shooting ourselves in the foot as an events industry moving forward, but it's definitely something to think about, how you monetize it. Will you require event registration? How will you promote the event? Do you plan to work with an advertiser? Have you got sponsors involved? How are you going to involve those sponsors? How do you make sure that they have the best ROI? And will people be able to have access to the event afterwards? Is it recorded? Where do you hold all of that? Does the platform allow you to do that? And the great thing about virtual events is that you really can track the data. So how do you use that data to meet your KPIs? So have a plan, make sure that you work out what you need to do, and then that will make it easier about how you do it. Next slide, please. Here we go, Wendy. I'm answering your question here. So the timing is really, really important. So picking the right date and the right time for your event is, as I said, important, regardless of the size or platform. Before sending out the save the dates, you do need to do a little research, just like you would with any event. Make sure that there are no competing events or holidays that would interfere with the attendance and reduce that in some way or other. And then, of course, it's taking the time zones into consideration too. So if you're going to plan a global event, you have a few options for ensuring you're reaching the right attendance, reach the attendance. So pick a time that works for as many of your prospects as possible. So I'm going to give you an example. We are doing a cook along for C-suite level execs for a tech company next week. In fact, we're doing it with the Rick Stein's Cookery School. And we have got participants in Italy, France, and Spain, as well as Singapore, as well as Australia. So we've had to pick a time that's going to meet meal times as well, because we're doing a cook along. So we've got a lunchtime in Europe, an early dinner in Singapore, and a later dinner in Australia. But one of the other things that you can do also is do the event several times, and you can pick out live bits. We do a lot of recording that you then show, so you can do the event in the morning and in the afternoon and just do it recorded with relevant people to be there to answer Q&As live at the time. So just think about you know, where your audiences are, because it is very difficult to do it for Australia and America at the same time, being opposite time zones. Make sure that all the on-demand content is accessible after the live presentations as well. This is an opportunity to have it all saved somewhere, so for those that couldn't make it, can catch up on it. And then when it comes to the networking, again, if you can't do all the sessions at different times, then maybe you can set up multiple networking sessions at different events for different time zones. So you need to check the analytics and see when your community and audience is typically online. And for a firmer consensus, you can also consider distributing a poll for preferred dates and times beforehand, and that gets people engaged before you've even started. So I hope that answers some of your questions, Wendy. On to the next, promote the event. So it's very important that you let people know it's happening, obviously. You need to share the event details by email and on social media. If you plan to run adverts and you need to target them strategically and choose the right format. For example, LinkedIn's in-mail ads may be a much better way to extend invitations than some kind of impersonal sponsored post that you put up. Also, a really big thing, and we learned this, speakers often double as influencers. So provide them with the details that they need to become event ambassadors. We just did a big awards ceremony online for the Creative Circle and Advertising Awards. And we had Edith Bowman presenting it all. And she's got over 250,000 followers. And she was great, you know, making sure that everybody knew that it was happening and encouraging people to come along. So use those ambassadors. Always include who, what, where, and how. That means no virtual event marketing should be without a link. Make it easy. Back to that point that you were just discussing with Maggie, Chris, about making sure that you're making it easy for people. Use the platforms that it's just one click. Make sure it's not too clunky. Also, whether it's a link to a registration form or onto a page through social media, whichever's going to work best for you. You also need to determine the key selling points your event has to offer. It could be the speakers, it could be skill sharing, it could be an opportunity to network, whatever it might be. Make sure that that's at the top of what you're talking about. Make sure that that's why people are coming, to entice them to be there. Something else that's been quite interesting for us to learn over the past few months as well is the fact that usually you'd be sending invites out months in advance because you need to be able to make sure that people have got the time to be able to work out their travel and to get there, their hotels, etc. Well, absolutely save the dates out 6 weeks in advance, but we tend to be getting a spike 2 to 3 weeks before the event. So it's a really good idea. It's a much shorter lead time here. So it's a really good idea to ramp up around this time, make a buzz about it all, bring it to the forefront of people's times, but just be aware that there is a shorter lead time to get people there. Also, we need to remember to share event hashtags. If you want this to be on a public scale, we need people to be able to promote it themselves. Use the attendees to be able to promote it. And if you don't use a hashtag, your social media people can't really pick up who is talking about it and where it's going. So encourage people to, if it's public, to be able to put the hashtag up online themselves with their social media. Some fun things to do is create a countdown in Instagram stories, create little teaser videos. We're doing something for a tech client at the moment that's doing an award ceremony online, and we've created little animations out of the actual presenters. So these execs that everyone is familiar of, we've actually put together their own little avatars, and they're putting together these little teasers that we're posting up to encourage their community to attend. Consider listing your events on sites like Eventbrite and other places your audience might come across them. Another great thing as well is, how do we bring the event to life at home for those people? So on the smaller numbers, incentivize them. Can you send them gifts? Can it be beer and bar snacks in a box to actually get some kind of touch and smell and feel, etc., while they're, and some kind of community feel while they're actually joining in on the event as well. We've had some great fun ideas over that with popcorn and things like that as well. So promote it. Going on to next slide, please. Thank you. The broadcast quality. So events has very much been in the past before all about theatre. Now it's all about TV. We need to make it look good. You need to prepare for your tech troubles. We've been laughing in the office. We say for physical events have hitches, virtual events have glitches. Hence why I've got my camera off at the moment, because we've had some trouble with that in the past. So prepare before you're kicking off. Prepare. Test your internet connection. Make sure you test all your speakers' internet connection. Do it at the time that they're likely to be doing, that they're actually going to be presented. Record everything. Have backups of visuals and presentations in case anything goes wrong or wonky at some point, so that you can just switch to the actual recorded one so you don't lose out. Run a rehearsal, and again, run 3 rehearsals. The sooner you identify the problems, the sooner you can identify the solutions. So keep practicing on the lead up to it. Make sure that you don't just come on and it not work. Remember that not all of your guests are tech savvy. Anticipate the troubles people may have by preparing easy follow guides and FAQs, which I know we just touched on with the questions. But if you've got some way to enable people to actually read and have a look, and sometimes we sent one out the other day that was so long, and that is affected by the platform that you use about how complicated it is. But another one, as we've touched on before, is that we've had people sitting at that when you walk into the foyer of the event, there was a help desk that's manned all day, and for people to ask questions about the tech, but also about the content and where to go and wayfinding, etc. So look after the quality, absolutely. Next slide, please. Make it inclusive. Just like in-person events, virtual events should be as inclusive and accessible as possible. Make sure you're using clear language, large fonts, and high color contrast to be able to, at all touch points, including the presentations. Provide captions and visuals where possible for audio, and provide descriptions where possible for visuals. Sites like VFairs also include page narrations and allow text character sizes to be adjusted. So provide opportunities everyone to opt in to interact. How can they make comments? How can they ask questions? How can they share opinions? And the chat bar is great to be able to do that. And there's always some form of chat on all of the platforms. Next slide, please. Encourage interactivity. I mean, this is across the board with events, really. You know, the more people get involved, the more they're likely to remember it, the more it leaves a memorable experience, the more they become an advocate for your brand, and et cetera, et cetera. So it's simple. If you create opportunities for engagement, your audience will be more engaged. It's also really fun to see the outcomes of your engagement online. So one of the things we did for the award ceremony that we did recently, the advertising award ceremony, we've done a few now, is to ask people to send in their celebratory videos. So we didn't tell them what they'd won, but we asked them to put a little video together, just filmed on their iPhone, cheering and whooping. And we used a collage of those, and we used them after the winners were announced. And it was great because we got loads of people engaged and wanted to see themselves on camera. Also, you could ask viewers to submit questions in comments through a chat tool. The chances are that the people that ask the questions are going to stick around to see if they get answered. If you do this, make sure that you have a moderator assigned to the task of fielding the questions, because obviously right now I can't read the questions while I'm presenting, but brilliant, Maggie's helping me do all of that, so thank you. Virtually every online platform has some kind of interactive feature, so use them. Ask people to participate in a poll or quizzes, encourage live chat, like tweeting as well, encourage social media, take requests and suggestions, or simply shout outs for names as people tune in. There are also some great tools for networking where you can randomly be paired up with others, which is something that Chris mentioned before that we've really enjoyed doing. So it's like the speed dating, but you can put parameters around it and making sure that the right people get paired up with the relevant people. And at the end of everything, like with any event, ask for feedback for sure. So again, I know that that's quite high level. I hope I've touched on some useful points there, but does anybody have any questions over that?
Thank Dina. That's fantastic. I have got a practical question, and then we've got a couple of questions that have come in on the chat. You mentioned about sending, I'll put my camera back on briefly. You mentioned about sending maybe packages to people who are participating. You know, so you can send something in the post. I have to admit, we don't normally ask for postal addresses of attendees. And indeed, there's a difference between, you know, you might know where their office is, but you don't know where their maybe home office is. How have you managed that aspect?
GDPR is a nightmare for everybody at the best of times, but again, very much when everybody's working from home as well. So absolutely. So we have set up sites, for example, where you can choose what you want. And so people opt in to be giving their address. Which is one of the best ways of doing it. Or you very carefully between, if you're doing very small number, like for example, our boxes for the cook along with Rick Stein, we've asked their execs for their home addresses for this. And so they have opted in and willingly giving those addresses. And then we have to obviously make sure that we don't keep that data and we delete it all afterwards.
No, that's fine. I guess it's just a little. I've just thought it a few times. Like, how would we have to? Okay, great. And then I've got a question from Lynn. Actually, was and almost at the same time as you were saying these words about the chat. She says, other than chat, have you used any other ways for question and answer and attendee participation?
Yeah. So polling's a great one. But she's mentioned.
That's your second question. Question part 2 is, have you used any polling tools?
Yeah. We love the polling tools, actually. That's become really useful. And I'm going to talk a bit more about hybrid events in a minute, where I think polling tools will become a really big part of hybrid events. We've also got the speed dating, which is great. And you can do that in smaller groups as well. And Chris, what am I forgetting here?
I think that it's really important to work with the presenters ahead of time, especially with those polling, to give opportunities for Q&A as well. A lot of the time, you know, Q&A is left just to the end, and especially, you know, with presenters that like to talk, they like to talk, and you get to the end of their presentation, you've got 2 minutes for 7 questions and one of them gets answered. So working with them to actually allow some time through their presentation is absolutely clear. If you do work on a kind of hybridized version, so you can actually promote people to screen, they can raise their hand, for example, in Zoom or similar in other platforms, to actually request to come onto screen, ask that question face to face. So they were actually, you know, almost like they were just in an actual face-to-face audience.
Yeah, great question. Yeah, I would agree. Okay, super. Lynn, I hope that helps. And Rebecca's saying we use Pentameter, Slido, and some other tools in conjunction with Zoom to get interaction, which is great. And then I've got a follow-up question just on the actually about sending stuff to people. Kirsty just asked, when sending out food items, how do you handle dietary requirements and allergies? And I think what you're saying, Dina, is that people are opting in to receive these. So you're making it clear what you're asking them and why, and they can maybe say, actually, it needs to be vegetarian or whatever. I think that would be...
Exactly. Just like you would at any normal, this is the new normal. You know, any face-to-face events, you ask for the dietary requirement.
Yeah, great, that makes sense. Kirsty, I hope that helps. And Rebecca's saying, oh, it's not Pentameter, it's Mentimeter. I guess there are so many tools out there that we're all going to get to know and use, and both as maybe hosting events ourselves, but also then as event participants as well. Any final questions on this section? And then we're now at 22, so we're good on time, and we can maybe move on to the next bit.
Yeah, not a problem.
Great.
So we're now moving on to hybrid, which is going to hopefully be starting to take place from the end of this year, early next year. The thing with hybrid at the moment is that we don't really know exactly what form it's going to take for each of our different face-to-face live event experiences. But what we want to do is work closely with our clients to develop that supporting experience that really adds value to the live event. And that's what we're trying to do with each of these. What we've actually got to talk you through are 2 essentially case studies of what we've been doing for events that are taking place towards the end of this year and the beginning of next. The first of these is what we're calling parallel hybrid. This is actually a face-to-face exhibition that's taking place in Barcelona in February. what we realized very quickly when we were building this event, even though we were so excited to be building a exhibition stand again, was that we didn't know where the pandemic is going to be and how many people are actually going to be able to travel to Barcelona to visit this fantastic stand. So we developed a virtual platform alongside it. And what we're going to be doing with that virtual platform is making sure that we can lean either towards that or towards the live and face-to-face experience, depending on how things are in January and in February. When we were looking at the experience that attendees would have as they moved forward, we looked at what a face-to-face experience would be. Now, pre-event engagement, and you'll see towards the end there, continuing the conversation, are key through any activity, any event activity that you do. It's not just about the experience on the day, it's about what you do in the build up to that, how you engage during the event, and then what you do to continue that conversation afterwards, so you don't just drop off the conversation. Of course, it's all about great spaces, or in the fact of an exhibition, creating a fantastic stand that will be a draw to your attendees. Inspiring speakers, people who can take you around the space and really engage anyone who drops in. And then, of course, breaking that down into more kind of workshops, smaller groups, learning, peer-to-peer is absolutely key. And then when they come out of that learning, giving them some space to be able to converse, engage, and network with each other. As a virtual experience, as an online experience, that pre-event engagement and the continuing the conversation don't change. We need to make sure that we are delivering an even more robust communications campaign to make sure that people are recruited, to make sure that they know how to access the platform and that they are engaged throughout. The platform itself needs to be simple to access, simple to navigate, simple to use, and make sure that people are able to view any types of content that you need to deliver. So whether that's live, on demand, or a mixture of two. You need to make sure that the platform's engaging and that it's interactive, that you're able to utilize those other pieces like the polling, like the Q&A that we've discussed, to really kind of bring it from just a monologue, a one-sided thing, to a dialogue where people are getting engaged and working together. And then the FaceTime. We all know that the reason we go to face-to-face events is, of course, to learn, but also to, find those connections with new people in your space. And so we want to make sure that that doesn't stop for a virtual event. But what we also need to make sure is that the experiences don't run solo experiences, that they run simultaneous. The pre-event engagement, when we're talking to people ahead of time, we actually give them the same comms, the same engagement throughout. And then when we get an understanding of which experience they're going to be attending, we can then tailor the information for them. The platform itself should align with the branding of the stand or of your event venue to make sure that it's as impactful and consistent as possible. The content itself, if you've got a fantastic journey, some storytelling going on your stand, make sure that that's aligned with the virtual as well. Any demos that are going on the space, make sure that those are actually streamed live so people can engage with a much more global audience and interact with them. And then those one-to-one meetings, if you're able to actually have people on stand with specific products or just some time for them to engage with a virtual audience, is absolutely key to really bringing that online into the live event. And then it's all about continuing the conversation and utilizing that virtual event platform to build a community between the exhibition attendees and the virtual attendees as well. Aligning online with face-to-face, this is just a collation of some of those ideas of how you actually really bring those experiences together. As I said, target both audiences with your comms, and it's only once they register your interest that you can tailor some of that content. But what you want to make sure is that the overarching experience that they're getting is as similar as possible. And that's the same with the branding. Make sure, and you can even in some of these actually create that exhibition space, create your live event, your face-to-face conference hall within an online space so people can actually walk around and see it for themselves. The content itself, make it live, make it available for viewing on demand, and actually bring some of the presenters that are on site at the face-to-face event presenting through your virtual platform. If you're able to bring a film crew onto the ground, take them around, do tours of the stand, do tours of the space, again, so you can actually show people what it's like, but also bringing in some of that virtual content, so you're not just focusing on the face-to-face event. It's giving them a taste of being on the ground, but without taking some of that virtual experience away. Launches are a fantastic way to be able to showcase how hybrid works. You've got a launch on an exhibition stand, you may have thousands of attendees, but what you do when you explore a virtual platform is actually extend that reach. You get instant feedback, you get thousands more attendees, and you've got a global audience feeding into that launch. And then it's the interaction, as I said, this is just throughout, making sure that every one of your attendees, whether they are on the ground or whether they are using your virtual event platform, they can feed in remotely and actually have them brought to the fore, have them come up on screen as if they were in the event and engage with them on stage or within the space. We then go on to the broadcast hybrid, which I think Dina's going to touch on.
Just coming off mute. So this is I can't really call it a case study because we haven't done it yet, but we're hoping to do it soon. This is something that we presented to a potential client of ours. So this is a hybrid where we're going to have that real studio feel. And then we can broadcast it to people at home, and we also have presenters at home. So we have some in and some out. So if you can move on to the next slide, please. I'm going to just talk you through the areas that we were doing. So we've called this the arena. So there's 3 different stages here. So there's each stage has an LED screen as the backdrop. But what's great about this is that we can get those really nice shots. Think about camera angles where you can actually move back and be able to see the whole lot together. And then think about election night. You can then use some really great AI to be able to show the kind of polling, etc. And this is a really nice way to be able to do an event. And that's the kind of, I'm conscious of time as well. So that's the arena. So discussion as well. So this is like a picture in picture. We've got 2 sofas there, definitely practicing the social distancing between the presenters. We've got another presenter that's actually being dialed in. And so that you can have this sort of 3-way communication. We can have people asking questions which you can have in it, like that come up across the bottom of the screen, etc. And think about sort of Saturday Night Live or daytime talk shows, etc. Really think of that kind of feel for it. That's set 1 for the discussion. And then set 2 is sort of the delivery. This is more about what we're doing now, really. So you've got strong, bold slides in the background and somebody is presenting, and then they might do a Q&A afterwards. So it's kind of think of TED Talks type kind of presentations. And the slides are used there really to be able to make a point. You don't have a lectern. It's just a really nice informal way to be able to present, and people can get involved absolutely from home by asking a question that can come up on a monitor, and they can do that following the presentation. And then the third one, which is actually one of my favorites, is kind of either a panel, round table or debate, where we've actually got these portrait style LED screens where we are zooming in the actual heads. So it's like a talking heads of people that are taking part in the debate or round table. And then we can have that lovely camera shot where you come back to see that everybody is there involved, and we can have the presenter monitoring it as well. I think you've probably seen some of this kind of thing on Newsnight, etc. It's just a really, really nice way of doing things. So those are the kind of things that we can do with the hybrid. So it's absolutely using a high-end studio broadcast facility for those that are there, and then basically streaming people in to be able to be involved, and then you can go out to a wider audience. One of the key things here as well is sort of the network quality. You do need to absolutely make sure that the amount of data that you're pushing down, and again, I am not the technical person, so Chris will probably be laughing at me about all of this, but the amount of data that's going through, you need to make sure that you've got the right equipment to be able to handle it. And so sometimes if you're really keen to do it at a special location, you might have to bring in a satellite truck, just like a TV studio would. So think more TV, less theatre. I think we probably need to wrap up here because it's 8 minutes to go, and I wanted to be able to save some time for some questions, but I'll leave this on screen for people to have a little read of while we're answering questions. But I hope that we've given you a little bit of an overview in a nutshell of what we've been doing, how we've changed, what you can do and how to make it engaging, and also a little bit about how that's going to affect our future. And does anybody have any questions?
Dina and Chris, thank you so much. And I will just say, I mean, these sessions are only an hour, and they're meant to provide, you know, insight and kind of ideas and things to think about, rather than you know, this is, you know, every single step. So please do, you know, please do feel free to follow up with the OrangeDoor team if you'd like to find out more about any of the things we've been talking about. If you've got any questions, please do put them in the chat. Rebecca's got another question about around costings, around will hybrid events incur extra costs? And if so, will organisers need to make a decision to go face-to-face or virtual? And is there truly the potential for increased revenue by reach?
Yeah.
There's a few questions.
Yeah, it's a big debate that's going on at the moment, and you know, nobody knows. We're going to have to wait and see. But my personal feeling is that I don't think it's actually going to make much difference to the cost of events. You're still going to, even though you spend a lot of money in sending people, if you've got 3,500 people and you're paying for them all to travel to Bangkok for an event, it's going to be expensive. So in some ways you can save some money. What we would be advising people to do is, with your budgets, invest those budgets on the people that really need to be there. So the influencers, the important people that really are going to make a difference, and invest that budget that you're not investing in the travel on the broadcast quality. Make that stage set look really good. Make sure that your tech equipment is really good. And if you are trying to save money, then again, you know, you might have to tone that, you know, tech bit down, for example, and you might have to tone the venue down, etc. But I don't know whether it's going to make it's definitely been, our budgets have definitely got a little bit smaller as far as the travel is concerned, because people used to be spending a lot of money on that. But I think when it comes into the content, being able to be interactive, that's where you should be. Don't think that this is the hybrid is a cheaper option. Spend the money on making it good, for sure. Did you want to add anything to that, Chris? Sorry.
The only thing that I would say is I think that virtual does actually add a huge amount of value when, you know, especially with something like an exhibition, you know, where you are spending, you know, quite a significant budget on building this fantastic experience that is very focused on the attendees to that, because we don't know how many people are going to be attending face-to-face events over the next few months, you know, year or so. We need to make sure that the value that you're getting from those budgets is as high as possible. And virtual, because you do have a lot of different options for those, so you don't have to be spending tens and tens of thousands. You can add on something that is a lot more cost effective to really broaden that reach of the event. As Dina said, making sure that you get the right people on the ground and then extending it further beyond that for your virtual.
Yeah, and I definitely think from a perspective of saying a community like WEConnect International, whereby you know, our participants pay for themselves if they're traveling to events, as opposed to say a company organizing something where costs are covered. One of the things that we've really found with our virtual events is we can engage our global community of women-owned businesses, and we do lots of in-person events throughout the year, and actually this way we've been able to open up to our women-owned businesses from any region, not just the ones who are physically able or able to pay or anything like that. It's just opened up so many opportunities for us, which I'm thrilled to see, and I'm, you know, hopefully there'll be more. I don't. If anybody's got any more questions, please do share them in the box. We've just got a few minutes left. Deborah said, "Great insights, thank you very much. Lots of food for thought." And I think that's why we wanted to do the session. Is, as many of you are starting to plan maybe for 2021 events, exactly what this slide says. What's it going to look like? What are our events going to, you know, kind of what is that look and feel going to be? I've got a question on behalf of, within the network of WEConnect International, we have a number of companies that provide, at a very high level, promotional items. And often when we do events, we might do it. And we've touched on, maybe sending stuff out via post. I've got one question about that, and then a kind of final question about the engagement. But will that change? What will conferences still want to send stuff? I mean, I know certainly it feels you don't want to create stuff that's landfill. I don't know if you've got any thoughts of things that you've seen that have worked really well if they've been sent in the post for an event.
I think that something that has worked really well is items that can be used for the event itself. So if you are actually having that shared experience or something like that, as we said, kind of a bottle of wine or something. So when you are actually have that specific time for networking, people can actually relax a little bit and engage with each other over that glass of wine as you would be at a live event. Or, it might be kind of a fruit basket or something like that. Or you send out the, kind of pen, notebook, flask, so people can kind of feel that they are all part of that. If you send that a couple of days before the event actually starts, then again, it incentivizes them to attend. One of the big things is that we can't control who's going to be on the event. We can't see the people coming through the door, as you alluded to earlier. So if we give those people, give those pieces to them just a day or two ahead, it's just that extra little bit of, suggestion to get them to there.
We actually did a judging system. We actually did the Creative Circle judging, and because usually they'd all meet in one room together, we then had to turn it all onto Zoom. And we sent out a box beforehand. They always get a bottle of wine as a thank you, but with all of the entries, with the notes and like a pack on it, we sent a pad and a pencil. So the bottle of wine, and also it was just at the beginning of lockdown when this happened, and we put a loo roll in there as well. And so that was just a little bit of humor for everybody. It was right for the audience, but just to put a little bit of that kind of something that people can talk about really adds value as well.
Indeed. Okay, and then we've got 1 minute. My final question is, what's the most engaging thing that you've got an idea of, or that you've seen at an event that might just spark some ideas for the call, for the people in the call?
Oh God, that's a horrible question, Maggie.
I'm interested in ideas. You guys are. I just wondered if you'd seen something that tickles you, or kind of thought, oh, that's really cool.
I think Elizabeth will love me for saying this, but we were talking last week about the fact that when you go to a face-to-face event, one of the great things about it is those serendipitous encounters that you have where you're waiting in line for someone, you're having a drink at the bar, and you get chatting to someone, and they turn out to be a fantastic contact. And a lot of the time with these virtual events, you don't get that. And within the Hopin platform that we're using, this speed dating piece that we're actually looking at really driving for our events just brings that to the fore. It's random. You can obviously, match people up, so you know that the right people are going to be matching with the right people. It's short and sweet, but people can continue those conversations. And as if both of you want to share business details, you both click connect, and then you get your business cards at the end of it. So it's a really great way of just continuing those networking pieces.
I also really like the use of the AI technology in the hybrid. I'm really looking forward to actually doing that, because if you think election night, that would be really cool to be able to do for your event that's really relevant to your audience and bring it to life in there, actually on the screen. So that's going to be fun for sure.
Fantastic. Okay, well, listen,
we are right on the hour. Thank you so much. This has been really insightful. There's a lot of comments, people saying thank you very much, lots of things to think about, really eye-opening. I think somebody said it makes me feel like I'm living in 1980, lots of change coming around technology, which is great. So thank you very much to the OrangeDoor team, to Chris and to Dina, and of course to Elizabeth and Theo for their ongoing support of WEConnect International and for sharing their experience with us today. This was brilliant. We will be following up. Jay will be in touch with everybody. But this is great, and as I say, lots of food for thought. And I really hope that many of you will participate in some of the WEConnect upcoming virtual events and other events where you can take some of these ideas and have a go with them. So brilliant. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you.